Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Oh, welcome into another afternoon edition of the show. I'm still flirting with the idea of taking this show to the afternoons in a more full-time capacity, although there are other complications in this life that I'll have to kind of figure out if we do go this route. But I must say that coming off of 2 episodes last week that did the largest numbers in the history of the show, I feel like it is probably an intelligent thing to do to at least consider the option. Now, in fairness, the show has been Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8:30 a.m. now for the better part of a few months at the very least. Been doing 3 days a week since last fall. I think it was doing Tuesdays, Thursdays, or something like that last summer. But we'll see. We will see over the course of the next week or so if doing afternoon versus morning makes a big difference or not. But that's me pulling back the curtain a little bit on the show. But that's not what you're here for. You're here for, well, all of the best talk about Philadelphia sports, some national sports, and then the media that covered them. That is the mission statement of the show. Hello. It is a marvelous Monday here on the show. We have a few things to get to. A couple of Eagles-related stories. Finally going to kind of wake us back up. You got the draft coming up. I am certainly not going to break down film on this show. I'm certainly not going to try to make it sound like I watched a ton of football this year and try to tell you why a certain guy that you've never heard of is a great pick for the Eagles at the end of the first round. I'm certainly not going to do the thing that we saw happen last week with WEEI putting out a rumor that the Eagles might trade A.J. Brown for the Patriots pick to take Abdul Carter. No, we're not going to do that. Now, could I make up a rumor and start to cause a little bit of chaos and maybe put the Crossing Broad machine behind it and turn it into something that gets aggregated just as a revenge of sorts for the nonsense that the New England fan base has kind of caused in Philadelphia? Maybe. We also have to find out who stole A.J. Brown's car, which we're going to get to. It has since been recovered. If you missed it this morning, A.J. Brown's car has been recovered, so we can all take a very deep sigh of relief, a nice little deep breath. A.J. Brown's car is back, so we have that. We'll get there. Cam Jurgens resigns. The Phillies bullpen blows a game on Easter Sunday. The bullpen continues to be a legitimate problem. I continue to ask a lot of questions about Dave Dombrowski, who I have lovingly begun to and have been referring to for quite a while now as Timu.com Mr. Rogers. He just seems to be very content with the team, seems very content with the fact that this bullpen is an absolute abject failure, quite the disaster, and yet the man doesn't seem to have a worry in his heart or in his soul. We will get there as well. And, a little bit of Flyers-related news and notes. Do we have any better insight into what their plan is in the first round of the NHL draft this year? No. Do we think that the Flyers are any closer right now to making the playoffs next year than they were when their season wrapped up in the past week? No. But we are going to check in with 2 former Flyers who went toe-to-toe in the NHL playoffs over the weekend in the Battle of Ontario. One Claude Giroux and one Scott Laughton. We'll talk about them for a second here later on in the show as well. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the show. And if you're a podcast listener, you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music. Again, wherever you get those podcasts. We got a lot to get into. I don't know how long the show's going to be because I also have to tell you that there is an episode of It's Just Wrestling brewing because WrestleMania was this weekend. I've got the It's Just Wrestling sweatshirt on here, but WrestleMania was this weekend. A lot of thoughts, so there will probably be a show popping up in your feed either today or tomorrow to kind of recap both nights, try to figure out what the hell happened at WrestleMania this week. A very weird Saturday with a great main event, and then Sunday, a very great show until the main event, which was very confusing, and we'll get all to all of that, but it won't be on this show. It'll be over on It's Just Wrestling. And I have been informed that there is a new Snow the Goalie dropping tonight, a live show from an untraditional place, a non-traditional location for Snow the Goalie. We were asked once again to participate in the Snyder Hockey Fantasy Hockey Draft, playoff draft. So it'll be myself and Bundy, intern Andrew, and I think we're going to have a few guests that are going to be on that show. So that'll be a live stream show. I think we're aiming to go live 6 or 6:30. I don't remember when I do. You'll see that pop up in your feed as well. So a lot of stuff going on. around Joy Media today. Oh, and by the way, it is a Monday, which means a new episode of Phightin Words dropped. So if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the numbers on your team, your town, your Philadelphia Phillies, you can go listen to Bob Wankel and Anthony Sanfilippo over on Phightin Words, also available in the Joy Media YouTube channel. So guys, a lot of things going on. I mean, that's Phightin Words is already in. It's Just Wrestling is coming. I've got this show right now, Snow the Goalies tonight. A lot of shows in the Joy Media Network. I'm just saying, it's a great place to go. Well, you're all in one place for some of your best Philadelphia sports talk and more. So anyway, we got to get into what's been happening around town today. We will start with some Eagles stuff. It's been a long time since we've talked about the Eagles on the show, so I figured it's probably worth having at least a brief conversation. And then we'll get into some of the stuff with the Phillies and the other things as well. Now, as you may have noticed, the show did not go live at 8:30 this morning as it has been for quite some time. It was an afternoon show, and then I set the time to 1 o'clock, and then the show did not happen at 1 because I started getting a lot of things from work that I had to kind of handle, and I went upstairs, and my father-in-law is here fixing something on the wall, and it was very appreciated. And then I ended up there trying to fix a laser level, and here we are. So anyway, it's a late start, but it's okay. We're all going to be okay. But that led to Joe Papel saying, back in the day, did Russ make his late students go to the discipline office to get late slips? I can neither confirm nor deny that there were late slips. You had to be really late. I remember there was like a weird grace period. I think there was a year that like we went down to like a 3-minute transition in the building, which was absolutely absurd for the size and the layout of this building. And it was like, if a student arrives within the first 3 minutes after the bell has rung, which means a 6-minute transition, you're supposed to mark them as like excused tardy or something. But if they were like 10 minutes late, you're supposed to mark them as unexcused. Well, the kids who showed up 10 minutes late are the ones who don't want to go to class anyway. So then what are you doing? You're rewarding them for showing up late and then going to the disciplinary office where there was a year. There was an assistant principal. It was my first year teaching at the school that I spent most of my career. She would give them lollipops. So like you'd have a kid who'd show up 10 minutes late to class and you'd be like, all right, go down. You got to get your slip. And like, it's going to end up being a detention. It's a repeated thing. It could be, a weekend, like a Saturday school thing. And kid would come back with a lollipop and a big smile, and there was like nothing wrong. And this is high school. I don't know if she's still an administrator anywhere. I should actually find that out. That would be really interesting. She probably like figured out a way to like become a higher education person, or maybe she became like a district management person. Somewhere. Now I actually do have to look. Hold on, give me a second, because this is what it's all about. Let me see. She is. I found where she's at. Oh, she works in an elementary school. That actually makes a lot of sense. Good for her. All right, so she kind of figured it out. But yeah, lollipops. Oh, you're 10 minutes late for class? Lollipops. Love that. That's awesome. Great. Awesome. Anyway, we get back on track here. Okay, that's a Pennsylvania school. All right, I found it. We're good. So yes, Joe, there were kids who would get sent to the disciplinary office for being late. I get no penalties here. The only penalty is the sadness I feel in my heart for letting you down. All right, let's see. There's all kinds of stuff in here about hockey, which we'll get to in a little bit. People watching a certain guy that the Flyers passed over for Jet Lashenko making his playoff debut. We'll get there in a little bit. A development around Rick Tocchet. So we'll get to some hockey stuff a little bit later on in the show, because that's where it looks like a lot of things are popping up. But Brian Knowlton says, say his name and he appears. Russ Joy. Joe Hendry, if you watched WrestleMania last night. I mean, I know. Andrew Fawcett says it's the Russ Joy Show. I know that because I can read. Dee Skinner replies, and you're smart. Everybody knows that. Everybody's smart. Check out the show. Okay. I want to get to a couple of the good news and notes. Let's start with the good news. The good news here is that if you were at any point worried, concerned, whatever, about the Eagles' offensive line potentially going elsewhere, the good news is that is not happening. It got reported this morning that Cam Jurgens has re-signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. It is a 4-year contract worth $68 million. $39.4 million of that contract is guaranteed. And it now makes him the second highest paid center in the National Football League. Second highest paid center. You go back a little bit and you think about when Jason Kelce decided that it was time to kind of hang up the cleats and that he was done. He had been responsible in part for helping to scout and find his eventual replacement, which ended up being Cam Jurgens. The first year without Jason Kelce, remember, there were a lot of questions. There were a lot of concerns about whether or not Jurgens would be able to step up to the plate. He only went on to continue to run the tush-push at a high clip, and oh, by the way, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Now he becomes the second highest paid center in the entire league, $17 million a year, and as I mentioned, $39.4 million guaranteed. Now, what this means for the Philadelphia Eagles is they have committed to this offensive line. They clearly have an organizational belief that building through the trenches is the way to win championships, a way to compete for championships. And again, friends, it is happening. And if you look at where the Eagles were over the past year, we're going to bring up a Shefty tweet. Just take a look at this in case you're like, oh, I don't know, like how committed are the Eagles to the offensive line? Here you go. Over the past year, now we'll blow the suite up a little bit there so you can see it a little bit better. Extension signed by Eagles offensive linemen in the past year. Cam Jurgens is now the fourth member of the offensive line to get an extension in this past year. 4 years, $68 million. Jordan Mailata, you'll recall, not long ago, signed a 3-year, $66 million extension. Landon Dickerson signed that 4-year, $84 million deal, and then remember, after he signed it, he got the new lawnmower. That was the hit on Eagles Twitter for a while. Lane Johnson also got a 1-year, $25 million deal. So if you look at that, and you look at the amount of money that this organization is willing to throw at the offensive line, it should come as no surprise that they believe that having consistency on the offensive line is the most important thing, and that when you are building a team that is, in theory, supposed to go back to a Super Bowl, potentially win another Super Bowl, keep that window of competing for multiple Super Bowls, create what you want to be a dynasty. In order for you to do that, you have to treat those guys on the offensive line well. You have to protect Jalen Hurts. You have to protect and be able to create holes that Saquon Barkley can exploit. Now, remember, like if we're being fair here, there are concerns out there about the total amount of touches that Saquon Barkley had last season. And players historically at his age who have had anywhere near that many touches, the next year the wheels kind of fall off. How can you try to mitigate any of that damage? How can you try to avoid that historical precedent? One of those ways is making sure that there's continuity in the offensive line. Pending injury, you certainly have a lot of continuity along that line. Yes, you have to now hand the reins over from Mekhi Becton, which I think ultimately he didn't get a ton of money from the Chargers, but the Eagles, for whatever reason, it just didn't work out here, and you kind of have to trust the front office. You have to hope that they're right in the evaluation of not handing what I thought was a pretty affordable deal to Becton, all things considered. The way that you prevent there being issues for Saquon Barkley, in part, is to make sure that you are creating a line that isn't going to lead to him taking a ton of damage. You don't want to have a line that consistently gets blown up where Saquon Barkley's taking excessive hits in the backfield. You want Saquon Barkley to get to that next level, like beyond the line, get him to the linebacker level, get him beyond that. In a big way that you can get that set up is by having success in the trenches. Cool. How do you prevent your most important player in the guy who runs the entire offense in Jalen Hurts? How do you keep him healthy? You give him a consistent offensive line that knows one another's timings, that knows what to expect of one another, by locking these guys into longer-term deals, with the exception of Lane Johnson, who I think is probably going to play something on like a year-to-year basis or maybe 2-year deals at a time. The way that you make that work and the way that you keep Jalen Hurts healthy and successful and Saquon Barkley healthy and successful and ultimately lead to a passing game that keeps A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith happy on the outside is by having a strong offensive line. They've identified the talent. They've been able to develop that talent, and now that talent is getting paid in a real way. So that, to me, is a very strong sign that this organization believes these guys that have gotten you to the promised land, these guys that helped deliver a Super Bowl to this team, keeping them happy and making them feel valued is an organizational priority. So that's a good thing. You should feel good about it if you're an Eagles fan today. Now, if you're Cam Jurgens, $68 million feels pretty damn good, and $39.4 million of it being guaranteed certainly doesn't hurt. So good job to Cam Jurgens. Good job to the Eagles by getting that done. Now, there is another Eagles story that happened, And I'm going to cover it in two parts because if we had done the show in the morning, I would have only been able to cover the first half of the story. But we have since gotten a second part of the story. Now, the first part of the story, I'm going to allow A.J. Brown to tell. A.J. Brown had his car stolen over the weekend in Philadelphia. CJGJ, if you remember, a year ago, 2 years ago, had his car stolen in Philadelphia. And actually, CJGJ quote tweeted an A.J. Brown video and said, like, that car is gone, like, kiss it goodbye. Nobody was able to help me when I got mine stolen. Oh, A.J. Brown is apparently a different guy. We're going to, really quickly, we're going to go out to A.J. Brown. I want you to hear about what happened over the weekend, and I'll give you the positive update. So if you're afraid of, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto, if you're afraid of the theft of an automobile, if you mourn silently in the silence of your hearts whenever a car is stolen, oh, that poor Mercedes, that poor Audi, that poor BMW, that poor Nissan Altima. There is a happy ending to the story. But first, we're going to go out to A.J. Brown really quickly because I think it's important that you hear what he has to say about what happened over the weekend. So let's first go out to A.J. Brown. This video was posted to his socials, so let's go out to A.J.
Come on, Philly. Come on, man. You stole my whip last night. Come on, man. I'll make a deal with you, bro. To whoever you are, which I'm going to find out soon. I'll make a deal with you, bro. Just bring the whip back, bro. I won't press charges, bro. Just bring the whip back, bro. And you can go on about your day.
All right, so let's stop there. We're 22 seconds into a minute-long video from A.J. Brown. You stole my car. Give the car back. I'm not pressing charges. Seems like a pretty reasonable thing. Now, listen, I've never been a car thief. I think the most I may have ever taken was a candy bar as a child, and I certainly paid the consequences for it. I got in a lot of trouble. Good parents. Never been a car thief. I don't know exactly how car thievery works. I don't exactly know how you feel after you steal the car. But presumably, if you stole a car in the greater Philadelphia area and you found out that it was A.J. Brown's car, you might be like, you know what, that guy helped us win a Super Bowl. I think I'm going to return this car. You know what, though? I get arrested. That is a downside. So A.J. Brown says publicly, not going to press charges. Just bring the car back. Nice guy. A.J. Brown, good dude. Good dude. Willing to say, listen, maybe he just meant to steal some other schlub's car. I know it's a nice car. Just return it. No charges. Okay. So AJ's trying to work something out very amicably with a car thief. All right, let's go back.
But if I find you, come on, bro. It's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Oh shit. Okay, that's a little bit different now. That has taken a little bit of a turn. So AJ went from give the car back, not pressing charges, it'll be okay, to if you don't return it, there's an implication there that he might kick your ass. Okay. And AJ Brown's a big dude. He probably would kick your ass. Okay.
And I'm going to come in the interrogation room. I might see about you, my boy. Like, I'm on that. But just bring the whip back, bro. You smooth with it, though. You pulled up at 342. You walked. You got up out of there at 345. You fast on your feet.
Wow, so we have an exact time. The car was stolen at 3:42 a.m. Guy was out of there at 3:45. Did he hotwire the car? You would think that with like the kind of car that an athlete would be driving, like there'd be a good security system on it. I don't know how this stuff works. So in fairness, maybe I'm wrong. Very interesting. All right, we'll keep going.
Real fast. I'm going to show you how fast I am on my feet.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Real talk. Like, this finna get done today. Like, bro, so you might as well pull back up, bro. Drop that out, bro. We know where you at right now. Right now. Like,
he says, we know where you're at right now. So that leads us to another question. Is there a special GPS system in the car? Now, in fairness, if you have a car that has a GPS system, some of those happen to give you the real location of the car. Now, in theory, I would assume, again, we're not an expert in car thievery here. I would assume that if you steal a car, you're probably looking to like wipe a system because a lot of them have digital systems. You think that you're trying to like wipe the system to, trying to make it so that the stolen car can't be recovered right away. Did he have a secondary GPS system on the car that you don't know about? Did he have an air tag underneath the car, just kind of magnetically attached to like the fuel pump or something? I don't know. But A.J. Brown says, return it, not pressing charges. I know where you are. So that means that A.J. Brown was like Liam Neeson in Taken. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If it's my car, I have a lot of them. But what I also have are a very particular set of skills. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. Skills that I've acquired over a long period of time. Now, if you return my car, that'll be the end of it. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And Big Dom will kill you. So A.J. Brown has now laid this plan out, okay? Now, in fairness, he put this out yesterday. He put this out on Sunday on social media. My car has been stolen. They have taken my car away. By this morning, A.J. Brown had an update. So, to answer the question in the comments with an answer instead of a question, Chris Freed asked, has A.J. found his stolen car yet? The answer is yes. Because this morning, A.J. Brown went to social media and he posted, I think this was on his Instagram story. A.J. Brown, we are happy to report, has since recovered the car. The car has been found. Let's go out and listen to A.J. Brown celebrating this morning that his stolen car has very quickly been recovered. I assume that it had to be Big Dom, but who the hell knows? All right, let's go back out to A.J. Brown. A happy ending to the story.
I'm out here grinding for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I gotta look for my car. Come on, man. Nah, but look, we already got the whip. See, I told you to just turn the car back in. Just turn it in now, and now you gotta deal with the consequences, man. I'll tell y'all a little funny joke, man, this morning.
So just start there. He reminds the thief, I gave you the out. I gave you an opportunity last night. Just give the car back. I know where you are. He's climbing in your windows. He's snatching your people up. Hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband. No? Okay. So we're gonna go past that. Good viral video. Anyway. So A.J. Brown said to this guy last night, just give the car back. I know where it is. We know where you are. Just give the car back. Guy did not give the car back, it appears. And now A.J. Brown says, well, that's it. All right. He's got a little story here.
When we're talking to the police, my little son gonna come up and say, hey, Dad, Paw Patrol. I said, hey, everybody got jokes this morning, huh? Yeah, the joke's on you.
So there you go. A.J. Brown has recovered his car. Everything is A-okay. Now, in fairness, there were some people questioning which radio host may have stolen A.J. Brown's car to lead to some discord in the Philadelphia fan base. I would assume that at this point it was not a Philadelphia radio host. If it turns out that it was, oh boy. Oh boy. Dee says, heard car back dude in jail, so guessing he didn't take AJ up on the offer. That appears to be correct. Yeah, not ideal. This is why car thieves, you can't be a car thief. You can't do it. Cannot do it. So, okay, AJ Brown is feeling fine. He's got his car back. Cam Jurgens has a wonderful extension. And now I have to, unfortunately, kind of poo-poo on everybody's day just a wee bit, because Easter Sunday we celebrate Jesus. On Sunday we had Jesus Luzardo on the mound, and some bad plays in the infield lead to Luzardo not making it farther into the game than he might have been able to, and had he been able to make it farther into the game on Sunday, presumably you would have been able to mitigate some of the damage that just happens by virtue of putting in the Phillies bullpen. A Phillies bullpen that is horrific to say the least. If you look back to Saturday's game, Romano came in. He looked horrific. Like one of the worst relievers in modern memory. I called him Jay Romano because I always think about Ray Romano. I'm trying. Jordan Romano, awful. Piss poor. Gave up, 6 runs the other day. 6 runs on Saturday. And because the Phillies had scored so many runs, they were able to squeak away with an 11-10 win on Saturday. They held on. Jordan Romano tried to give it back to them. And the Phillies overcame. They couldn't overcome it on Sunday. And so, again, I bring up the fact that, while Jesus Luzardo, who's been very, very good this year, while he was excellent and while he gave you 7 innings, giving up only 1 run, by the way, a very good acquisition. Thus far in the season, we can very clearly say Luzardo, which we thought was a really good acquisition at the time, has been every bit of that so far this season, right? But he gets you through 7 innings. Had it not been for a couple of misplays throughout his 7 innings, he maybe gets you into the 8th. And if he does, it's possible that things don't fall apart. What fell apart? Kerkering comes into the game. Kerkering gives up 3 runs. You end up going to extra innings. You end up seeing the Marlins go on to win. They put up 2 runs very early in the 10th inning, and then the Phillies put up little to no fight in the bottom of the 10th, and the whole thing falls apart. Now, can I get over it as a Phillies fan? Can I get over the fact that the Phillies bullpen has once again fallen apart? Sure. Because, and I don't mean to relitigate this all the time when the bullpen comes up, but like I said in the offseason, I didn't think that this team did enough to kind of fortify some of the places that they needed to. Great to get Jesus Luzardo. Great to have him as insurance for if Ranger Suarez goes down. Saiwan Walker having, some good starts early in the year has been kind of nice. But we knew that the outfield was an issue. We knew that the bullpen was probably an issue. Now, in fairness, I tend not to rail against a front office when it comes to bullpen because bullpen arms can go either way. And in the case of Romano, he's 2 years removed from a really good season. And you would think, all right, bring this guy in, get him in as part of this system. You know that you have guys like Strom and Alvarado that you believe can be your higher leverage guys. Maybe Romano becomes somebody who you can kind of add to the mix at the end of the bullpen, the back end of the bullpen. And maybe if he's not being relied on to be the guy in this bullpen, at least to start, he's going to develop into being something closer to that guy. That hasn't happened. That simply just has not happened. And he's been pretty damn dreadful. Okay? So it's bad. And at this point, if you're a Phillies fan, the same way that we kind of like jokingly mocked other teams early in the season where he said, all right, well, the Phillies bats can't get anything going against the starters, but wait till the bullpen comes in and the lineup is going to eat. The inverse of that to some extent has been happening with the Phillies. It's really been as soon as the Phillies bullpen comes in, that's where the opposition begins to eat. So had it not been for the fact that the Phillies had put up as many runs as they did on Saturday, you're talking about a series where you would have blown a massive lead and lost on Saturday. You blew a lead late on Easter Sunday. Not ideal. You would have been looking at having lost 2 of 3 to the Marlins after splitting a series against the Giants. Instead, you were lucky enough to hang on Saturday. You blow the lead on Sunday. You were very close to having a sweep of the Marlins at home. You win 2 out of 3, probably feel okay about it. But man, it is absolutely brutal. And if you're a Phillies fan, it feels like a lot of the things that we were worried about in the offseason, and a lot of the things that we were even worried about at the end of last year are kind of rearing their ugly heads. Now, look, we can go back over the Phillies offense, right? And we could say that, like, over the last few games, you could feel pretty decent about it. They've put up 5 or more runs in 5 of their last 6 games. You had a 6-run performance against the Giants. You had 2 6-run performances against the Giants in that 4-game set. They had 7 runs against the Marlins on Friday. They had 11 runs against the Marlins on Saturday. They put up 5 on Easter Sunday. So you go, all right, well, the bats aren't totally silent. The bats aren't totally inept, but there are other things at play here. And it's especially frustrating because if we're being fair and honest about it, right? If you look at the end of the season and you're looking as you're battling for a wild card spot or maybe to try to win the NL East, the games that you blow early in the year count just as much as the ones that happen late in the season, that happen in September. The difference, of course, is that the focus is so much more magnified in the fall because if you lose those games down the stretch, now you're not only talking about potentially losing ground in that playoff hunt, but you're also talking about falling out of good form as you go to enter the playoffs. So it's a little bit different. But in fairness, like a blown loss right now is going to count just as much as a blown loss in September. And so if you look at this on aggregate, do you say to yourself, losing that game, while I can go, all right, still won 2 out of 3 against the Marlins, which is fair, you could just as easily point to it and say, I hope that one game doesn't come back to bite them. I hope that the Jay Romano appearances early in the season don't come back to bite this team in the ass the same way that Taijuan Walker's last 10 starts last season went, where they went 0-10. So much of this is about balance, right? I'm not totally sure that you should live and die with all 162 games, but I am fairly confident that you should be able to understand that there's a lot more at play than just, it's not just a one-off. That one game could ultimately have a cascading effect later on in the season. Okay. So I'm done on the Phils. That's it. That's all you're getting from me, because there was a Phightin Words this morning, and they went into a lot more detail, and love those guys, and it's great. But I will just point out the fact that, like, the Phillies have the second worst bullpen in all of Major League Baseball right now, with a 5.81 ERA. And I have a legitimate concern that, like, Timu.com Dave Dombrowski, or Timu.com Mr. Rogers, a.k.a. Dave Dombrowski, is going to say, oh, it's okay. It's all right. We like our team. We like our team. Our team is good. No, you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to figure it out soon. I've been saying this now for a couple of weeks, and I'll continue to say it. If you start blowing these games and you start giving up ground that you don't really have the luxury of giving up, this is going to rear its ugly head later on in the season. You can't allow that to happen. You can't have an unchanged bullpen. You can't have an unchanged team and just hope they're going to work it out. No, be proactive. Get a deal done early in May if this bullpen isn't fixed, because that is a legitimate concern and a legitimate issue. It's one thing when your starters get blown up and you're frustrated, and then you go, all right, a lot falls on the offense to try to go out and plate some extra runs. These are games that you have effectively won. These are games that, like, Jesus Luzardo comes out after having given up one earned run in 7 innings, and you should be able to get 2 damn innings worth of outs. You should be able to get 6 outs from guys that are paid pretty well to be in your bullpen to finish the game off. This shouldn't be complicated, and yet it feels like every single game when this bullpen comes in, it's like deja vu all over again, and you expect the bullpen to struggle. Dombrowski will be committing organizational malpractice if he doesn't at least consider a potential move at some point between now and early May if some of these guys don't get their heads on straight. Now, there have been moments this season where I've looked at Alvarado and I felt very good about him. There have been a couple of times that I haven't. Strom, I think, has done enough to make you think that he has at least a little bit of a longer leash. Kerkering's been up and down. Romano's been a disaster. When Ranger Suarez comes back, we know that the guy has ice-cold Kool-Aid coursing through his veins. You consider having Ranger Suarez in the bullpen if you can figure out a way to put him in high-leverage situations so that things don't get to him. He might be a perfect back end of the bullpen guy, especially if there are concerns about whether or not he can be healthy enough to be part of this rotation. Oh, and by the way, there's the thought that Andrew Painter might get a call-up at some point this season, and you're going to want to have a spot in the rotation open for him. Much better, much easier to send Saiwan Walker to the bullpen when your top prospect comes up than to send Saiwan Walker to the bullpen right now in favor of Suarez if Suarez blows out his arm again in 3 or 4 weeks or starts getting some numbness in his fingers. Just throwing it out there. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show there were other things that I wanted to get to. Hockey happens to be one of them. We're not talking about basketball right now. So let's get to some of the hockey stuff. And I saw there are people in the comments, so we're going to touch on a few things. But the most notable thing, and I brought this up a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that for whatever reason, there are a couple of reasons that I can think, Rick Tocchet's name has been tied to the Flyers job. That there are people who believe that Rick Tocchet could ultimately end up becoming the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. And you might think to yourself, well, how could you do that if he's under contract with Vancouver? Well, Vancouver is not firing him. And Vancouver has a team option on Rick Tocchet for next season. And so we've been kind of sitting back wondering, will they exercise that team option? Now, in fairness, that would be the last year of his deal, and it kind of puts you in a spot where you have a potential lame duck head coach situation. Not exactly ideal. Well, my friends, Canucks GM Jim Rutherford spoke to the media today about Rick Tocchet. So we're going to go over to Tock really quick. Because again, were they going to pick up the option? Were they not? Is it possible that he could end up back with Vancouver? Could they negotiate a new contract? Could Tocchet look to leave? Could he look to, represent the orange and black? Let's go over, hear what Vancouver had to say, and about whether or not they believe that long-term they could work something out with Rick Tocchet. Let's go over there first. Here we go. Vancouver. Lovely place, I hear.
The one doing the contract, and I know that like every year or all during the year, there's always issues being talked about what the coaches want the general manager to get for them and how he wants to play and all that. I believe that communication's been good this year, and it's even been better since the season's ended because I've actually sat in a couple of those meetings, and it's been a really good dialogue, okay? We will not exercise the team option for him to stay.
Wow.
We don't feel it's right to have somebody here that may have his mind somewhere else.
Oh.
And I'd say that about anybody. This is not just about Talk.
Oh.
But we believe that, and I believe that Talk and his coaching staff did as good a job coaching this team this year as they did the year before when he was coach of the year. Now, he was dealt a totally different hand this year. When the team won the division, it was a lot of good work by him, a lot of good work by the players, but everything went right. This year, we've talked enough about, the incident that happened and affected the chemistry of the room and affected the play of the team in the first half. And
which many consider to be a falling out between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller.
Forced to trade. But with all that going on, how he handled the situation and how he handled the team was really good. So I give him and his staff kudos for the job they did this year. As for his contract, we've gone through a process.
Okay, I'm going to let this wrap up, but there are like two concerning things I've heard in here, and this is why I'm going to voice a little bit of concern. Okay.
We've negotiated. I would suspect sometime this week he'll have a decision. We have gone a long ways from where coaches have been compensated with the Canucks for years, forever actually, and we're hoping that he takes that contract and stays.
All right, so here's the TLDR version of what we just heard from Jim Rutherford of the Vancouver Canucks. They want to bring him back. They were not going to exercise his option and hold him to a lame duck contract for a single year. He notes, we don't want to do that to somebody whose mind may be somewhere else, which is like very much, they clearly think that he may have an eye on Philadelphia, or maybe there's another opening, but Philadelphia would kind of make a lot of sense. He's good friends with Keith Jones. There's a relationship between Tocchet and the Flyers. If you wanted one of those with the big eyes like bugging out in a cartoon, I mean, saying that we're not going to pick up the team option on the head coach because his mind may be somewhere else is pretty freaking wild, and would seem to indicate that like they know there's a possibility that he could end up somewhere else. But then Rutherford says, we've gone to a place with this negotiation, with compensation, that Vancouver has never gone to before. So now, if you're a Canucks fan, and let's say you're a Canucks fan and you really like Rick Tocchet, and you say, all right, what are you guys doing to keep him? What are you doing to keep him in town? Now you have the organization saying, we're willing to spend more on this guy than we've ever spent on a head coach in the history of our team. Does that get you excited if you're a Canucks fan? I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, there are a few names that have been kind of floated as being potential candidates from the Flyers. We'll go back to Danny Briere's end of season press conference where he very clearly stated that he doesn't view that this next season is going to be that of what we've seen in the rebuild of, kind of getting rid of some talent. Now he's talking about adding. And in the midst of trying to add, you would think that, listen, they're not hiring David Carl. Like, just get that out of your head. If you're hoping that David Carl is going to leave Denver, leave a job that he really likes in the college ranks to come to Philadelphia, it's not happening. I have heard that, if he were going to move, uproot his family, that maybe the Rangers job is something that could be interesting. This is before Laviolette got fired. I still think it's more likely than not that he stays where he is. If anything, maybe he relocates to somewhere that's like closer to Denver, but I don't see Dave Carl leaving the college ranks to just go anywhere, and anywhere would include the Flyers. It doesn't make any sense for him to come here. I don't think it does. So then you're like, all right, there's the Western Michigan coach who has a relationship with some players, and including a bump. And you go, all right, so you've got that. Do you hire that guy? I think he's 54. Do you hire a guy from the collegiate ranks to come in here? You don't use the Dave Hackstall thing not working out as reason to not look at a college coach. But like that to me is a little bit of a concern, like all right, so you have one guy that you're maybe considering from the college ranks. You would assume that there's somebody out there in the league that is an established head coach, because this league hires a lot of retreads every year. Guys just bounce from one team to another. You would think that there might be one or two of those guys. And then you have Rick Tocchet. I hypothesize that maybe if Carolina gets bounced from the playoffs early and Brendan Moore mouths off about the Rantanen thing falling apart, that maybe that leads to some kind of something where he departs Carolina. But I don't really think that's going to happen. So you kind of put that one off to the side and say, all right, unlikely that that's going to be the case. Tocchet kind of fits the bill. There's a relationship there. And now you have the front office executive of another team saying, we're trying to pay him more money than we've ever paid to a coach before, but his mind may be somewhere else. I mean, that very, very clearly tells me that Tocchet has his eyes elsewhere, and that elsewhere probably starts with a PH and ends in Philadelphia. So if you like that idea, you're very happy right now. And if not, that would seem to confirm that there could at least be an interview coming for Rick Tocchet. And the idea that he's going to have a decision made by the end of the week, that decision is presumably take this contract or he's out as coach in Vancouver. I don't know. Do I love it? No. Do I really care? I'm not exactly sure. It just feels like there's too much smoke to the Rick Tocchet fire right now, the Rick Tocchet to Philadelphia fire, for us to kind of pass that one over. All right, let's see. We're going to get to some other hockey points here really quickly. We'll get to some Tocchet stuff in a little bit more, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Tony Louis says, watching Boom fly around. I always, with his last name, sometimes I'm like, Booyum. Sometimes I hear Booyum, whatever. Watching him fly around the ice last night made me so mad. I texted somebody that I respect and trust, who covers the college game a lot and gets to see a lot of these guys a lot. And I said, I'm trying to figure out how badly the Lutsenko over Zeev pick is going to look, and if it's going to look as bad or worse than passing on Cole Caulfield to take Cam York. And this person said, like, oof or woof to both, and said that, like, the only reason that he could think that the Flyers would have passed up on Zeev is that he had the same agent as Cutter Gauthier, and that maybe they were worried that he wasn't going to sign here, that, like, maybe it's an agent thing. Now, that wasn't confirmed to this person, but it was a hypothetical kind of thrown out. But, yeah, like, for a team that desperately needs blue line help, Zeev would have really helped. And now you're going to watch him zoom around, and hopefully it's not going to hurt you as much as, like, watching Makar and knowing that the Nolan Patrick thing didn't work out, but woof. All right, let's see. Max Miller pointed out about Tocchet's option not getting picked up. Phil Efan asks, would you trade Forster and picks if it means that you could get back one of Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, or Shane Wright? I'd be intrigued about Cooley. I'm not totally sure what to think of Shane Wright. There was a time where, like, the idea of a 1-for-1 Shane Wright for Morgan Frost deal could have made sense for teams, for, like, the idea of, like, a hockey trade, a 1-for-1 hockey trade. Cooley could be interesting. I don't know about Keller. There's part of me that, like, I don't want to overrate Forster's end of the season, but I'm intrigued by it. I don't think it was totally fool's gold, and he's still young. He's like 24. I wouldn't give up on Forster right now, unless the thing that you were getting back is like a legit stud player. And in fairness, like, doing that or having that mentality means that I'm probably overrating Forster just because of the end of the season. But if we're talking about another guy that, like, has underwhelmed or something, or that, like, you're not feeling as confident in as when you drafted him, like, I don't know if I want to make that deal yet. Let's see. Sean says, in terms of guys with connections to the Flyers and their front office, Furschweiler is 100% more intriguing of an option than Rick Tocchet. That's your Western Michigan coach. I agree. So there's part of me that goes, all right, Furschweiler is six or 7 years younger. I think he's 54 and Tocchet's 61. This isn't like an ageism thing, but like if I'm looking at it in terms of what does this team need now and going into the future, I look at it and go, Furschweiler's been coaching the current type of player, the current iteration of what players entering the league are like and where they are mentally and like how to communicate with them, which I think is really big. And Danny Briere essentially said in that end of season press conference that the communication and the teaching aspect is going to be really important. And then I'd look at Furschweiler and I'd say, well, if you're looking for communication, if you're looking for somebody who can get through to the new player, the modern player, the younger player, and who you presumably would want to hand this program over to for 3-4 years and have them build it and have them help develop Matvei Mishkov and maybe have them get Owen Tippett straightened down and have Tyson Forster take that next step. Like, Furschweiler makes a lot of sense, and I would feel pretty good about it. Tocchet isn't a bad coach. The question is, how much teaching is there? What does that communication look like? And there is this like very, the red flaggy thing is just that like he's only made the playoffs twice in his career as a head coach, which isn't like bringing in Alain Vigneault, who hadn't won a Stanley Cup but had been to multiple Stanley Cup finals. So I'm just not sure. And if Tocchet ends up here, he'll probably do a good job. I still think that virtually, like barring a cataclysmic offseason, this Flyers team will probably be in the hunt for a playoff spot next year, and not in a stupid way and not in a patchwork kind of way. So I think in either case, you're going to have a coach that is going to get along better with the players than Tortorella did. The concern that I have is like the thing between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. How much of that festered under Tocchet? How much of that preceded Tocchet? How much of that was Tocchet able to kind of nullify to the point where, like, yes, there were some leaks and yes, there were some things that got out about it, but like it didn't totally tank the market for JT Miller, and it hasn't fundamentally tanked what people believe Pettersson could be. Like, there's a way that you could have had those guys in such a toxic place if enough things had gotten out. Like, I'm not sure. I need to know if, like, did Tocchet just kind of try to brush it under the rug and that's what made it get worse? Did he face it head on? Is that why they traded JT Miller? If I had more context around that, I think I'd feel better. But ultimately, it's certainly not my call. Now, Video Guy Amadeo checks in and says, if Rick Tocchet is remotely close to being the next Flyers head coach, I will give up. Well, he is remotely close. He would be on a short list of candidates who would be in play for the head coaching position. So, Amadeo, don't give up, but it's going to happen. The guy's name is going to be involved. I cannot fathom that unless Vancouver offers Tocchet like $7 million plus or like $6.5 million or something, I would assume that he's going to walk away and test the coaching market. So there's that. We have some WrestleMania stuff here. Josh White says, I believe in Joe Hendry. Amadeo believes in Joe Hendry. Tony Lewis says, we believe in Russ Joy. RKO out of nowhere. Joe Hendry he's had a hell of a year. And having the WrestleMania card as the mystery opponent for Randy Orton. Anyway, we'll get to that on It's Just Wrestling this week. Let's see some stuff here about some things about Claude Giroux. We'll get there maybe in a little bit. Chris Freed says over under on Nola bombs tonight is 2.5. What are you taking, Russ? The over? 100%. Just always take the over. Take the over with Nola. Although Pope Francis passed away this morning. So now that the Pope passed away, I saw that Nick Castellanos apparently has the best odds of any player in the National League to hit a home run tonight. So while I'm not encouraging you to like go run to your apps, although if you are looking to, sign up for one, you can look for something that I've written or go check out some of the sports betting stuff on Crossing Broad or whatever. It's the same company, so we're, kismet here. But Castellanos, I think, has the best chance in the National League of hitting a home run tonight after it was announced that the Pope passed away. So make of that what you will. Ford says, hello. Slowly getting back to work. Went to Cape May with the family for a few days. Had a blast. Good job, Ford. Hope you had a great time. Who doesn't love going to Cape May? Zach O has a recommendation, says Lucky Bones. There's somebody who used to listen to, or maybe still does listen to Snow the Goalie, who was working for Cape May Brewing. I don't know if he still does or not, but I like Cape May Brewing a lot. I don't know when is the last last time I went to Cape May was high school, maybe freshman year of college. It's been a long time. We always go down to, we're an Outer Banks family now, but you know. Bus Camper says, "What up, Russ? I joked on Saturday that the lead was large enough for Romano to come into the game while he was warming up. Wasn't expecting the 11-10 final." Correct. Let's see. Bus Campers also does not want Tocchet. Said, I hoped that Vancouver would lock him up so he'd be off the potential list. Amy asks, do the Flyers want Tocchet that badly? I think they certainly want to have a conversation. King Alfred's U.S. Descendant says, all right, let's hire a former Flyer because they've never done that before. That's not great. Zach O says, thoughts on the Danny B exit interviews? Feel like Danny's saying they have zero plans with their head coach search as BS and it's all a smokescreen. Well, that is, they have some people that they would want to talk to. They're just not going to give you any indication because, again, there are going to be a lot of other teams that are looking for potential head coaches. So you got to be careful there. Joe Papel says, doesn't Tocchet also have connections in Pittsburgh? No playoffs there for a number of years. Yeah, I mean, if Sullivan gets fired, does Tocchet look at Pittsburgh? Maybe. I think you look at it and you go like, ultimately, if you're Tocchet, where do you want to be? Ooh, I almost ended the show. That was a very bad click. Thank goodness there's a secondary. Are you sure you want to end the stream? That was almost bad. I don't know where Tocchet's going to end up going, but if like the Flyers job is open and if the Penguins job were to open up, like, do you want to go coach Crosby and Malkin at the end of their careers? Maybe. And if they win the lottery or they're going to be back in lottery contention, maybe to coach Gavin McKenna for a decade, like there are worse things in this world. Let's see. Average Warzone guy says, I feel like Sullivan is going to be let go and Pittsburgh will hire Tocchet. Maybe. It's possible. Let's see. Video guy Amadeo just says Tocchet is a bad coach. I don't know if... Okay. Greg Bondarega says, afternoon, fellas, getting used to the new time of the Russ Joy Show. Remember, it's not permanent. At least as of now, it's not permanent. We're going to take a look at some of the metrics, some of the viewer metrics after this show is done and over the next couple of days and see if it does good numbers or not. I have some theories about why last week did so well. It was very newsy and the Flyers getting that number 4 spot in the draft lottery. So I just want to see. We'll see if the afternoon show works out or not. We'll see. All right. Amadeus says, Rutherford also said that Quinn might want out. Jesus. If Quinn Hughes wants out of Vancouver, that'd be horrific news for them. Colin Gamble asks over on YouTube, why is Rocky Thompson still employed? He won't be when the new head coach is hired. Unless here's the real interesting one. If Brad Shaw were to get the head coaching job, which I would be really surprised by, but if Brad Shaw gets hired as the full-time head coach and doesn't keep Rocky Thompson, that'd be newsworthy. If he gets hired as the head coach and keeps Rocky Thompson, that would also be newsworthy. And don't worry, we would break it down here on the Russ Joy Show. So, last thing I wanted to get to was a fun little interaction in the playoffs between Claude Giroux and Scott Laughton. Because if you don't know this, if you haven't been paying attention, the Battle of Ontario is going on in the first round, where you get Claude Giroux and the Ottawa Senators taking on Scott Laughton and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they like ran into each other on the ice last night as Laughton was going to the box. And I don't know if I can I show it without it getting flagged? No, I probably can't. All right, so I'll just explain it real quick. There's a moment in the game where Laughton's heading toward the box, and he like kind of bumps into Giroux, or Giroux bumps into him or whatever. And they kind of chirp at each other like a little bit. But I saw a bunch of people this morning reacting to it on Flyers Twitter. Listen, on one hand, you feel good for a Claude Giroux if you're a longtime Flyers fan to see Giroux getting the chance to lead his team on a playoff run. Then you have the the realism hits you that like Ottawa doesn't have much of a chance of getting by Toronto. And then you look at, if you're Scott Laughton, he's had some like pretty big plays of late. But like Laughton was here for a good long while, enough for you to feel good for the guy on a human level that he gets to go help his hometown team, maybe help them make a deep run into the playoffs as well. But like you're now watching two guys that had a letter on their sweater with this Philadelphia Flyers team going head to head in a playoff series while the Flyers have missed the playoffs for 5 straight years. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you wonder why, after the exit interviews, why Danny Briere said they're now looking at, instead of subtracting talent, but rather adding talent to this team and trying to like build this team into the next step, that's why. 5 years of missing the playoffs does a lot of damage. It does a lot of damage to the psyche of a team, to the psyche of an organization, to the interest that a fan base still has in that team. And then if you're a Flyers fan and you turn on the TV and you're like, oh, there's Scott Laughton, he was wearing an A on his sweater. There's Claude Giroux, he was the captain of the team for a long time. They're going head-to-head in the playoffs. One of them is going to advance to the second round of the playoffs. Meanwhile, our team hasn't made the playoffs in 5 years. At some point, something has to give, and that's why you will it's not the entire reason, but that's part of why you're going to see this Flyers team look to add in the offseason and look to get back into the playoffs, because they know that it is best for business, and they know that it is best for a Flyers fandom that has not had a lot to cheer and has not had a lot to look forward to. Now, in fairness, they are in a spot where they have better young talent than they did a few years ago, and so it's okay for them to start adding. Average Warzone guy says, I'm so sick of hearing about fourth liner Scott Laughton. Dude was nothing more than a bottom six dude, and this team sucks. Oh, the team sucks him off like he was the GOAT. I mean, listen, Laughton ended up getting you fantastic draft compensation. You can't be upset with it. And it also helped you get Grebenkin, who, I don't know if Grebenkin's ever going to help the Flyers, but like in theory, I always like the idea of having that scratch-off ticket. I like the idea of kind of having that lottery ticket. You decide, all right, not the highest chance that this guy's going to help us or is going to like hit it big. There's always a chance that the guy develops and he ends up being somebody who can help your team. I don't think anybody's predicting that Grebenkin's going to be a top six forward, but could he be a good depth piece on a team that ultimately like makes a playoff run? Maybe. Hard to say. And on that, I'm going to end the show for today because we'll be back on Wednesday. Now, again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I got this sweatshirt on. It's just wrestling. There will be an episode of the show either today or tomorrow, recapping what happened at WrestleMania Night 1 and WrestleMania Night 2. If the show happens tomorrow, it'll also include whatever the hell happens on Raw. They've announced that John Cena is going to be on Raw tonight, so I'll have that in there as well. Snow the Goalie, new episode Monday night, live streaming from Brooklyn Bowl in Philadelphia at the Snyder Hockey playoff fantasy draft. So it'll be myself, Bundy, intern Andrew, some guests. We'll be doing that show. It's going to probably take a while. It's going to be a long show. Join us for the hilarity. Join us in the comments section on YouTube, Facebook, and X over on the Snow the Goalie channels. And then if you want the Phillies talk, Phightin Words over on the Joy Media YouTube account. They have their own YouTube account. They're also available wherever you get your podcasts. So a lot of different shows going on over the next few days. So do me a favor. Go subscribe to all those channels. And if you can, like this video, share the video, and subscribe. Subscribe to the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel, where there has been exponential growth in the last few days, very much on the heels of the two highest viewed episodes in the history of the show. We are current, as of right now, we're 54 subscribers away to 1,000. So as my former student and current commenter, Josh White, said the other day, the run to 1,000. 54 subscribers away from 1,000, which is a heck of a milestone. I'll feel very happy about it. So if you haven't gotten there yet, if you haven't hit that subscribe, hit the subscribe button. It is very kind. It is a nice thing to do, and I would greatly appreciate it. So until Wednesday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Talk to all of you on Wednesday here on the Russ Joy Show. Have a marvelous Monday, everybody. Talk to each and every one of you very soon.